So please welcome Heather Hink to the show. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. And, I had Sarah Huckabee on a few weeks ago. And when I met her, I got connected to you, and you're like a team together all the way
Yeah.
from Tennessee. And, I love, I know that when people come into my life, it's for the time that I'm in right now. And it was more affirming to me the last couple days that I've been like going down your rabbit hole, like, oh, that's why Heather's in my life. And, there's so much to get into, and you're like a plethora of, like if I was going to write questions down for which I don't do, but I'm thinking it would have been pages because there's so much to your knowledge and what you've opened your soul up to, and knowing now your passion and your purpose and why your soul came here and what you've evolved your business to be. And it's just so it's inspiring because you've really listened and followed the path and picked up the breadcrumbs. And I really admire that because people can get stuck in their head in the fear and stay in your web design work that you did, and that was your career. And I thought, that's the safe place, but you really listened. And I think why you're with me at this time is I'm in a shift, and it's been like the last month or so. And when you talk about timeline shifts, and I talk about that a lot on this show, and I was listening to you earlier, and you were talking about, people in this place now, in this earth, and this frequency, and this vibration, and the veils thinning, and all the things, and people are getting these different activations and feelings and different. I'm kind of in that place, and it's so funny, and we'll get to it later when we start going into that, but I just wanted you to understand kind of what I got from learning about you. And I kind of wanted to, every person that I have met on this journey in this podcast has given me tools and insights on where I'm going in my life and what I've done, or if I've listened, or if I've said no, or if I haven't picked up the breadcrumb. But you've shown me, like, okay, there's a shift now, and I can't wait to go there. But before we do that, I want you to go to what I was explaining. I think 2017 is when you started feeling the shift, and you were in your old job, and let's go there, and we'll see where we can take this magic and uncover your magic.
Yeah, 2017, that was a big year of shifts for me. Out with the old life and beginning the journey into the new. That was what I would say started my awakening journey. And a lot of stable things shifted out of my life. But it opened me up into this magical world that most of us don't even know exists. Um, as my world started shifting, I began to go within and meditate. And after a period of time of doing that consistently, I began to channel. Didn't know what channeling was, didn't have a clue. But I had a beautiful group of angels that came in and were telling me that everything was going to be okay, that I was going to make it through it because I was falling apart. Everything was just leaving. And I thought, what have I done? But I began to channel angels, and then angels were everywhere, angel books, angel documentaries, angel stories, angel numbers. I was just inundated with angels until I finally said, okay, you must be real, and accepted that. And then shortly after that, then it was like, okay, let's move you into the galactic realm and understanding that there's galactic star beings. And your world is just blown because you never dreamed about the possibility of there being something, we always talk about, is there life out there? There is so much life out there. It's just so infinite and expansive that we can't even wrap our minds around it. But I started down that path of uncovering what these galactic beings were, and just diving down rabbit hole after rabbit hole of that type of information. I couldn't get enough of it. It's almost like I was remembering,
Mhm.
hey, you are also a galactic being. And that was, that's always fun to go down and be like, you're crazy, but no, it's true. And then that led me into finding, I loved listening to hypnosis sessions, quantum healing hypnosis sessions. I stumbled across those, and I found them so fascinating because what I had been learning about ascension and the great awakening and all of that, all of a sudden I'm listening to these amazing people channel this information through their higher selves, about all the things and bring through all of this higher dimensional information that spoke to me so deeply. I felt sometimes like they were just speaking directly to me, like I was remembering when I was listening to these sessions. And eventually that led me into becoming a hypnosis practitioner, which I absolutely loved. Um, and it's just my journey since then has just unfolded and unfolded and unfolded, and it's expanded, and it's been the most incredible journey that I could possibly imagine ever unfolding in my life.
Yeah. And exactly what I said before you started speaking was you have been unfolding it and willingly to understanding, like following your highest, I say the highest timeline, but your highest calling, and it's so beautiful to see that. And so, understanding where you came from and seeing it from a higher perspective and knowing that, like you've lived in Tennessee your whole life, right? Like thinking of
Yeah.
this small town girl, like that's all you know. And then that's what kind of is like unique about you is that, here you are in this little town, haven't really, lived other places, but have really figured out what you really truly are and what this life is and what this earth is, why we decided to come here, how much more is out there. So the first, talk about the Pleiadian connection, because there's something that you connected with at the beginning with that.
Yeah, well, so after the angels, and I kind of went into the acceptance of, okay, this is real and they're talking to me. Then I started, it was like, you know how stuff just pops up. You get videos about Pleiadians, or something will lead you to this, to this, to this. And I started learning what a starseed was. It's like, what is the starseed thing? But I started to look into it, and I got guided to work with a few different readers or energy healers. And every single time they would say, "Oh, you're a Pleiadian starseed." And I'm like, what the heck is that? And so I started diving into who the Pleiadians were, and learning that we are. Our souls are not just human, that we're all sorts of different things that our souls can choose to be. And I think it was the third time I had an Akashic record reading with Debbie Solaris. She's amazing. And I remember she picked up the phone for our reading, and the first thing out of her mouth, she said, "Must be my Pleiadian day. You're my second one today." And I
Wow.
think that was when, I'm getting chills right now. That was when I said, okay, there's something to this. There's some reason why I keep being guided to this and this and this. And then I'm having all these other magical experiences on top of that. So I kind of accepted that, and then started to dive into, what does that actually mean? What's going on? Why am I finding this out? And what the heck am I supposed to do with it? It's exciting yet overwhelming to think that this is even possible, but it just opens up the door to even more possibilities, because we're so much more than we believe ourselves to be.
So go to where you were before you met her and she said that to where you are now, and how do you view your soul? Like how do you see it now with all the stuff that all the breadcrumbs you've picked up? Explain
Yeah.
what a soul is in your body, that little fractal of whatever you've been and you are happening, because everything's happening now.
Now, yeah.
What's the evolution of when you first realized that and you started hearing the angels to where you are now?
I think it's amazing. So hypnosis too, when I started to become a hypnosis practitioner, you really get into it because you get to explore it with your different clients because you're exploring their soul and you're going on all of these past life journeys and you're seeing the bigger picture of what we truly are. You get to go into life between life. Stages where we can actually take them into the spot between a life where they're planning the next life and see how, as a soul, you get to decide a lot of what you experience. A lot is up to free will, but we really have so much more control over our experience than we understand, or maybe not control, because once we get here, it's a whole different story. But you just begin to see how expansive the soul is. And you're right. You're just like this big ball of light, this big ball of consciousness that holds so much within it. And we get to fractal off as a little part of that soul, a little part of that energy that comes down and it gets to experience life in a variety of different ways. Whether you want to be a human, you want to be a star being, you want to be an elemental. I did messages from your guides and angels sessions with a beautiful channeler for about 3 years. And we spoke to, I would say, between 100 to 120 different galactic races from around the universe. And you would not believe what would come into the sessions to communicate with their clients. All of that was organized by my Pleiadian team. We would bring clients in, and the first part of the reading was who's here to support the client's reading. We would have rays of sun come in, beings that lived in the sun, things that we would never think are possible, elemental energies that you can't even imagine. We would have fairies show up. We would have mermaids show up from Sirius. We would have giants show up from inside of the earth. We would have, we had our regular team of like Arcturians, Pleiadians, Andromedans, and then offshoots of those different beings that would come in and share a little bit about who they are, what they do, how they help us. When you start to connect in that way, you realize how expansive each of us are because those beings who would come in for the client are oftentimes part of their soul or their oversoul. So they're very connected. So this part's down here playing the human, but there's other aspects of you that are in other places right now playing other roles. So it was so interesting to see that connection. And it just makes you realize this is one teeny, teeny, tiny drop in the whole ocean of the universe.
When you start getting these Palladians and Siri, all are they telling you that's who they are? Like, are they?
Yeah.
Are you hearing it? Are you seeing them?
So I'm not seeing them, but the channeler that I worked with could see them. Absolutely. When we started working together, we would go up on well, they say my starship. It's not my starship, but I have an aspect as a Pleiadian that's on that starship. So she would connect through just me guiding her into meditation to the starship. And we started first to see the beings. So she would describe what she was seeing, the different types of beings. And then she began to connect and they would bring through messages. And then from there, we sort of worked our way into, she began to trance channel, which is where you kind of move over out of the way a little bit and allow for them to come through more fully. So when she was channeling in that way, her voice would change based on the frequency of the group. So the Pleiadians always come in. We always make fun of them because they're very firm and they sound very serious, but they're really not. They're so fun and loving. But that was the frequency that they brought through. So that's how her voice sounded. And then the Arcturians, when they would come through, they're very playful and they like to crack jokes. You would never think Arcturians crack jokes, but the ones we were connected to loved to crack jokes. And then we would have the fairies come through, and they were so, I almost couldn't hear because they're so light, that frequency that comes through. The angels had their own frequency. So you could really feel even the energy of the different beings who were switching out to speak through Emily. And it was incredible, the information that was coming through and what we were learning. just an incredible experience.
Oh, I can only imagine. But
Yeah.
explain to me, like, there's messages from the Pleiadians. Like, what is their main message to you that you've really like said, "Oh my gosh, that's a huge message to me."
Well, I was lucky because I got to chat with them all the time. So, I would just always ask personal questions and general questions. But in our messages sessions, they were more meant for the client to ask questions. I think as a Pleiadian, there's Pleiadians are very connected with the angelic realm, especially those who are considered Pleiadian warriors. They're all about fighting the darkness here, eradicating the darkness. They work with a lot of the underground tunnels and things with the children, if you're familiar with that. That's actually something that I have an aspect that does that work as well. Many Pleiadians do that work in dream states.
Hmm.
But they're very serious about what they're here to do, which is to just get the darkness out of this planet and get us back to where we need to be, which is a planet full of light and love and rising into the higher frequencies.
People, we always talk about the new Earth and, the new 5D and beyond. And from your perspective, do you feel like what you feel from all the things you've learned is that your frequency and your vibration and everything will get to you in a way that you'll start connect, like people will start connecting with these Palladians, and they'll be more like part of their life
Oh, for
eventually?
sure. Oh,
Like within
yeah.
the next, what, how many years do you see that? Where that's part, see, it's like such a fear-based thing. People talk about it like we're being invaded. We're going to have this, it's so, what we've been programmed to believe, but it's so fun to where we're at to learn that they're just here to bring light and love and all the things, but people have such a different view of that. But where do you see like where we're finally going to be, that's going to be part of our, I don't want to say community, but part of our what's going to increase our light and increase our frequency and bring us to that place and live that way. Like, will my
Yeah.
children and your children be in that place?
That's a great question. It's so funny. After as many sessions and channeling sessions as I've done, you would think that I would have a better idea of when, but really, the when is always up to us. It's all an inside job. It's us changing our frequency and doing the inner work and releasing the old and letting go of all the things that are keeping us in the lower dimensions. I feel like more and more people now are starting to connect with them easier. It's like as your frequency and vibration raises, it makes it easier for them to kind of come down and meet you. And I would say to those who are afraid of the beings that may come, unfortunately, we already have a lot of really negative beings that are here on this
Right.
planet and have been here for a very long time. We just don't see them and really know about them. So um, there's so many beautiful benevolent beings that we've worked with and so many teams, again going back to how many different groups that we've connected with, to hear their stories and what they're doing, and they all have different roles and how they're assisting us. It's a big job. um, Not just this one group or that one group, but so many are working really hard to help us raise the frequency and help us eradicate the darkness. And it's unfortunately a battle that most people aren't aware of, which may be a good thing. But it's a battle that will be won. It already is, as everything exists in the now moment. It's already happened. We're just right now playing through the final, scenes of the movie to get to where we're going.
Right. I love that. And you explain the Syrians, and I've never heard of them as abundance. And, we explain that because that was new to me.
Yeah, so the Syrians from Sirius, I love the Syrians. They have such a beautiful frequency. I always confuse them a little bit with the Arcturians because they have a very similar frequency, but the Arcturians, they're a little more spicy, where the Syrians have this just beautiful, almost just puts you into a beautiful meditative state to listen to them. Um, they are a wide range of different types of beings. They have a lot of aquatic beings. It's where our dolphins and our whales come from. They are Syrian. Um, dolphins and whales. Our water is from Sirius as well. They always tell you that water is programmable and you can
Mhm.
speak intention into your water and you can change the structure of it. We have very high frequency water. We've just misused it and abused it. There are land beings, there are the water beings. It's such a beautiful and expansive place, but it's magical. So I do a lot of group hypnosis sessions, and there's been a few where we've taken a trip to Sirius. And it's so fun to listen to how everybody describes it, but it's always very similar: beautiful crystalline water, gorgeous colors in the sky, and then just to hear the different beings that get described is it's a lot of fun.
So you understand when you do your, hypnosis through the people that you are working with, what really they are? Like, can you channel that too? Because how do you know that when is it just because everything is so similar, like they're saying telling you the same story, it looks like this, the crystals in the water, that would be the Syrians versus the
Yeah.
Pleiadians or the
Well, that's
Arcturians.
a great question. Now, if we're doing a specific group session, so sometimes I'll say we're going to go to the Pleiades, or we're going to go to Arcturus, or we're going to work with these beings. And then when you set the intention for something specific to happen in a session, typically most everyone will have a very similar experience. There will be a few that kind of go off on their own journey, and that's okay because that's where they needed to go. Sometimes people recognize and know where they're from, or who they're connecting with. And sometimes not. It'll just be a very radiant being, full of light. You don't really know, but you can kind of guess. You can kind of feel into the energy. A lot of the people that I work with are pretty well versed on their species, so they'll know when they visually see them in meditation.
What about Lemurian?
Yeah, I have not done a lot of work with Lemuria. I think we've done a trip to Atlantis, but we've never gone back there. That's one I haven't done yet. I'll have to put
Because
that.
that's where I have connection to.
Yeah,
And I've had like, you know, healers I've done sessions with, and it comes up every time. And so I've
yeah.
been reading the book Women of Lemuria,
Mm,
and and he Chiron, it
yeah,
channels that.
yeah,
So to understand, and I've had these visuals that, instead of feet, I have a mermaid tail. Like it just
yeah.
came out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh, well, where did that come from? And then it's like I've had sound baths where they were told to bring a Lemurian sound bowl, and
Yeah,
it's like, so it's been all this like these little tools, or not tools, but little tips, little things along the way that it's interesting to connect to that and learn too, like you've been learning about where you're connected to. And
yeah. I
everyone has a
think.
connection, right? To something.
Oh, absolutely. Oh gosh, absolutely. And there's so many of us here right now that have connections to Lemuria and Atlantis, that time, and we're bringing back. First of all, I think many people are bringing back the magic of Lemuria because that was such a beautiful time period, and bringing that energy. It's like rising up. In different locations around the world, and then so many hold the codes and the keys from Lemuria. So we're bringing those back into this now so we can reactivate those. And then many also are doing that from Atlantis, trying to bring back the magic of that time period and right the wrongs that sort of happened at the end of Atlantis, and change the trajectory for us, because um, we're sort of matching that time period a little bit here where we are now, and sort of the downfall of that time period, but we're here to sort of um, change that this time.
Explain that. Explain that, how it mirrors what we're going through now.
Yeah, well, I think we're at this point where we're seeing all this chaos and things that are happening, and a lot of stuff that happens underground that many people don't know, with manipulation and mutilation of animals and people and things that they're trying to do scientifically. And that's sort of a mirror of that time period. Also, it was a time where there was a lot of control. We're seeing, a lot of control happening around the world. And right now, all of that's rising to be cleared, to be seen, for people to wake up and to be cleared. But during that time period, it didn't go so well, and it ended up causing a cataclysm. So I think that's happening now, but now we're aware of what happened back then. We're working more with our star families who are assisting us in shifting the frequency and vibration of where we are so that it doesn't go downhill and we have another cataclysm, but we actually ascend out of it this time.
Do you think all the star systems that have been coming through are coming through stronger now than ever because they want us to get to that place and not have to go back to what happened in Atlantis?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And anything that happens, it's going to affect the entire universe. So our ascension has a ripple out effect. If we were to self-destruct, let's just say, that's going to ripple out and affect everyone. So when we rise, everyone rises, and it kind of bumps everybody up to the next level. So it's kind of like a group effort this time.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I went on your website and downloaded the blueprint codes, recoding,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I sent it to everybody. So today they're all saying, "Oh, I did it right before I went to bed. I've had these dreams. I can't wait to do it again." So
Yeah.
let's talk about recoding and all the things that you do with and explain blueprint, and we all have one and all that stuff.
Yeah. So this started coming to me, I would say, about 5 or 6 months ago. I go out for a walk every morning, and my guides taught me how to channel, just to open up and connect with them. And so I could typically have almost like a direct conversation when I'm outside. And they started talking to me one day, all of a sudden, about codes, and talking to me about the divine blueprint, the divine template that we all have. So we all have sort of a template that makes up who we are as a human. Let's kind of think of it like house plans. Like if you go to an architect and they draw up a set of plans, and then your builder takes it and builds a house, those plans are like the blueprint for the house. So we all have a divine one. It was the original blueprint that we were created with. The earth has its own divine blueprint. And then, really, everything in your reality that you can see has its own template or blueprint that makes up what it is, how it interacts with your reality, what it does. And as we know, our divine blueprints were all sort of manipulated throughout history. Our DNA has been messed with, and all sorts of things that have taken maybe the original human templates and sort of dumbed us down a bit. It's made it harder for our bodies to function in the way that they should. They're self-healing. We should be able to heal naturally. Um, it's of course, we're in an environment where there's lots of toxins and things, so we're fighting with a lot of things, but also the human body holds so much trauma. This is one of the things that we do as hypnosis practitioners, and with the guided meditative work that we do, is try to help you clear and release the trauma and the density off of the body that you've been carrying. And not only have you picked up so much from this one life, but think about all the lives that you're connected to and that you're living right now. So, as a soul, you are connected to every single one of those lifetimes. And if you are struggling or going through trauma in a lifetime that hasn't been cleared or released, or maybe you took on vows, or maybe you got hexed and cursed, or you picked up an entity or two, all of these things ripple out and can affect us in this life. So we learn how to do the inner work, right? We do guided meditations, we work with energy healers, we get hypnosis sessions, and we do our inner work to try to clear all of that. My guide started talking to me and talking about sort of a new way, and not that it's new to me. I think there are many people that do coding in different ways. They started helping me to see the code beyond the physical reality. So underneath the surface, what you see is physical around you, but underneath there is codes for everything. There's codes that if you were taking your physical body, you've got emotional codes, you've got physical codes, you've got etheric codes, you've got source codes. It goes on and on and on because we have so many layers to ourselves. So they started sharing with me how it's important for us to start working with these codes because we can recode them. It's almost like they were showing me as a web designer, because that's what I did for so long. And I worked with code, so it made a lot of sense to me, but they were showing me as a website. If you go to a website and you look at the homepage, you're seeing the beautiful graphics and the design and the layout. But behind the scenes is all the code that makes up how that website functions. And so as a web designer, occasionally we'd have somebody hack in and inject some bad code, and you'd have to go through and find where that code was, take it out, recode something, make it stronger, um, to heal your site. And so they were sort of showing me these divine blueprint codes as a way that we can begin to recode our reality. And this is something actually I can see sometimes at night. I've woken up and I see light moving through the walls. I see geometric configurations. I see patterns. And I asked in a channeling session one time, what am I seeing? And they said, you're seeing the code that makes up the reality, almost like the matrix, like we see that matrixy code. You're able to see that when you're sort of in that in-between state. So I started learning how to work with my guides to bring forward these codes. And it's just a way of sort of through your intention, accessing that inner divine blueprint that is the original, how your body should function if it were in perfect condition, without all the overlays, without all the trauma, without all of the density and the darkness that we carry. And it's getting to, let's say, the cellular level of whatever you're holding. It helps you release things that you're holding through your intention and through spoken word, which is very powerful. Words are codes. And it helps you reprogram with the new beliefs and the new programming. So it's kind of like we're releasing the old outdated code of the third dimension that told us we weren't worthy, we weren't good enough, we weren't abundant, we can't have whatever. And it's reprogramming the mind at the cellular level. It's moving past your mind, and it's getting in there to the template, and it's recoding the template so that you're running on new code. You're not holding on to any more of those limiting beliefs. You're holding the new higher beliefs. So it's been amazing to see how people are responding and reacting to these codes, because I've been working with them for a while now, and it's just really incredibly powerful.
And when you do a session with that, are you doing it under hypnosis, or how does that work?
I offer written ones like in the Blueprint Recoding Guide that you downloaded, but I do have a session in the Quantum Soul Portal. This is a monthly membership program that I have. We have lots of different sessions, but the Blueprint Recoding sessions are pretty new. And so I do take everybody into a nice, relaxed state, and I guide them through a journey of going in and releasing whatever it is that we're working on, and then recoding. And it's interesting that someone said that it was happening at night, because Sarah, when we did our first Blueprint Recoding session, she had a really incredible experience during the session. But at night, she said she knew that her team was still working on the templates, still recoding from what we had done in that session that morning. So I thought, well, that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I loved it. As I told you, everyone got it. And I said, who is that? Because your name wasn't on it. I said, oh, I interview her tomorrow. I can't wait. And
Oh,
then
I
you're
love
going to listen.
that.
Okay, let's talk about entities, because you do talk about that. And
Mhm.
that's part of you. And I just would love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, entities. Water here. So my journey, it was of hypnosis. I started out with Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, which is an amazing course for anyone wanting to be a hypnosis practitioner. Um, and I got going in that, and I started noticing some really interesting things with my clients. When you get to the higher self portion of the session, you expect to have this beautiful information flowing through that doesn't sound like the client's bringing it through, but sounds like it's coming from a higher perspective. And that's most sessions. There was a session or two that started standing out where the higher self didn't know the answer or was disgruntled, like, why are you asking me this question? Or would cuss at me for whatever reason. And I'm like, what is happening here? And then there were a couple where there were just some really weird things that were happening. And I started to think something's not quite right here. I need to explore this. Led me down to a path of understanding what entities and attachments are, and implants, and a lot of things that we have energetically attached to us that we have no idea are attached. And I ended up taking a course by Laura Whitworth. It's Soul Center Healing Hypnosis. And she teaches hypnosis, but with a focus on entity release. And so once I took her course and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much. As soon as I integrated that into my business, it took off. I did nothing but entity release for months and months. I had so many clients pouring in that were covered in things. Almost the whole session, you're taking off implants, you're finding nests of snakes. I know that sounds
What?
crazy. I know they're energetic entities. They're typically, a lot of them are lost from light. They are entities that have forgotten their light. And so, in order to survive, they feed off of ours. So, when you are in a very low state of being, not just randomly, but let's say you go through a period of depression or trauma, some sort of trauma happens to you, your energetic field, the sort of the protective layer around you becomes, it gets holes in it, it gets tears, it gets rips. And these little energetic entities can get in and they can attach to you because your defenses are down. A lot of times this happens when you're very little. A lot of kids go through a lot of trauma, or just not being able to speak out, not being able to use their voice, and we go through so many things. So you find out that a lot of these entities and attached spirits have been with them since a very early age. And what's really great about it is you can talk to the entities, you can find out why they're there, what have they been causing the client. Typically it's connected to some sort of issue that they have. So they've been dealing with an issue for years, maybe even hearing voices in their head. I think a lot of schizophrenic patients have entities that are attached and talking to them. And when we get them off, it's like the personality changes, the voices stop, their whole life shifts, because all along you had something energetically attached to you that was manipulating you in some way. If it's a darker entity, they will try to, they like the sacral chakra, because the
Right. That's
sacral
my
chakra is
next
like,
thing.
yeah,
I
you're
remember
addicted.
learning
That's your
that.
addictive center. So they can create sex addictions and drug addictions and alcohol addictions. All sorts of things can happen. And this is not, I would say this is not to be scared of, because you don't just walk around getting things stuck to you. But if you're feeling like, something else is going on that I can't quite pinpoint, and I don't feel like it's mine, it may not be. It may be something that's sort of in there manipulating you for your light.
Where do they go when you get rid of them?
Well, we send them back over to the light. So typically, so Laura teaches to work with the angels and Archangel Michael. He's the big protector angel, and he will open up a safe passage over into back to source, is basically where they go, and the angels will escort them back into the light. Now, if you can't get them to go back into the light, then you just have the angels remove them, because some of them are stubborn and they don't want to go back to the light. They're hell bent on being dark, because that's just the path they're choosing. And a lot
So,
of them are controlled by higher masters. I know this sounds insane, but it's really true. They have a master manipulator that sort of sends their little minions out. And those are typically the ones that are trying to prevent starseeds from waking up, trying to prevent them from being on their path, remembering who they are. And they just want to feed off of their light and keep them in a lower state of being.
okay, so I get the holes in your aura or whatever your energy, and that's
Yeah.
where they go. where the weaknesses are. So
Mhm.
in protecting yourself, what do you just keep your vibration high and do all your, all the things that make you happy?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And I think, a lot of people work with light, just seeing themselves surrounded. Your intention is very powerful. So if you intend to strengthen your auric field, with light, you simply call upon it. You can call upon source light to flow in and strengthen your field. And if you don't feel like comfortable doing it, you have a beautiful team of angels and guides, and you can simply ask them to put you in a protective bubble and make sure your field is strengthened. You could work with your auric field in meditation and just see like a beautiful, connect up to source and just allow pure source light, white light, golden light to run into your crown. And then I do this in all of our guided meditations and our journeys. We bring in the source light, we expand it out through the body, and then we push it out and we create our little dome of protective light before we do any guided journeys.
Did you have entities?
I did. I did. And I didn't think I did because I was so I didn't have any problems or like any emotional or mental issues. And it was actually crazy because I didn't have a session to remove them, but I was doing in one of Laura's training sessions. I volunteered to be one of the ones she practiced an entity release on. And she was like, I don't think you have an entity, but you can just, we'll practice. And sure enough, the first thing that I had was this I started laughing maniacally. I don't even know how to describe it. It sounded like a demon was coming out of my mouth. I could not stop laughing. It was the creepiest thing ever. I couldn't stop it once I was in that state. And it was latched onto my third eye, trying to keep my third eye closed. It
Wow.
was crazy. But I experienced it. And I was like, I told her, I was like, I couldn't stop laughing if I wanted to. This thing was just pure. You could just feel it. I had no idea it was there.
As as this earth shifts and we move into the higher frequency, are those not even going to be able to latch on to people
No.
or no?
No. And I think eventually they will somehow just be removed from us. I don't know how just yet, because that was always my question. Can we not find a way to just remove these things from people in not having to go through them in a tedious way by searching and finding and seeking? But I there's no way they can exist. It's got to be a frequency match. So in order for you to get an entity attached to you, you have to be a frequency match for that.
Right.
So when you're high vibing and you're happy and you're, everything's fine, no, you don't have to worry about anything just coming up and sticking to you. But like I said, if you've gone through trauma or periods of extended depression, or you've got some sort of, maybe some mental health issues, that can open the door for those who aren't aware, and they can kind of come in and latch on, unfortunately.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about timelines and parallel lives and all those
Oh,
things. I love
that's
to
my
talk
favorite.
about.
Me
Me
too.
too. Well, I was like, I feel that because when I was listening to you, I think it was today or yesterday, and you were talking about that. I think that was the subject of your video, and I'm so drawn to that because I really get it, and I'm learning. I'm getting it more, I guess, is my point. I'm not a
Yeah.
professional by any means or an expert, but that's where I'm at. Like I said at the beginning here, it's like when I listened to that and I started realizing where I was in my mind and frequency and this shift that I'm feeling and I don't know what it is. And I'm like, it's just as, like I know you came to me at the right time because that's where I was like, I'm really connecting to this timeline shift. So take it away, explain it from your perspective because I really resonated with that.
Oh, I've loved timelines since I started my awakening journey. I even have a channeled course on timelines, which is channeled by, I think the Pleiadians channeled it. I'm trying to think which one they channeled. I think the Pleiadians channeled it because I get so fascinated with how many timelines we're on. So, as much as I know, I still don't feel like I fully get it because it's just so hard. You're living this one linear life, and it looks like each day you're waking up and you're living the same life experience, but you're not. There are an infinite number of timelines that are sort of, you can think of them as lined up next to each other. And on that, and we're always shifting. Every day we're constantly shifting through timelines. And this is kind of what I think, sometimes people will notice like something new that wasn't there, or they'll notice something different, maybe even like a Mandela effect,
Mm-hmm.
where it was one thing on this timeline, but now it's shifted and they can't quite pinpoint why is that change. So we're just always moving through these timelines, and there's little differences maybe that you might notice, or you may never notice anything. I know my daughter actually jumps timelines a lot because she'll have things move around from like a bag into a drawer, or from one table to another. It's crazy how it happens for her. Um, but you can do a quantum leap, which is when you shift a massive number of timelines and your whole reality changes. I'm actually going through one of those right now, where a lot of things in my life are shifting in a massive direction, and it can feel a little uncomfortable because you're like, what is happening? But when you understand from the higher perspective, when you shift your frequency and vibration and it raises to another level, it aligns you with a new timeline. So we have lower timelines where maybe you're experiencing heavier things, or you're going through more challenges. And then you have all the higher timelines where maybe life is flowing more smoothly and everything is aligning with you easily. And so your frequency, it's like changing radio stations. As your
Right.
frequency shifts, you're shifting through all of these different experiences. So there's that. And then there's parallel lives. So not only are we shifting through all these timelines, but then there's parallel versions of you that are living right now, maybe a similar life like you're living, or maybe something completely different, but they're parallel, and you may even look different. It's crazy. Sometimes in hypnosis sessions, you will jump into a parallel life, and it's you, but it's a completely different life experience. And then those can kind of bleed over into each other a little bit. So again, that gets confusing as to what is your energy, what are you experiencing in this life, and what is maybe another part of your soul, because it's all just parts of your soul that are existing in the now moment. Oh gosh, I could go on and on about timelines because they're just fascinating.
When you say that in the hypnosis, they can go to find, their soul is in another body and they
Yeah.
can't, the person looks different. Is that happening in this lifetime or is it in a different life? I mean, I know it's all happening now. So how do you explain that? So if they
Yeah.
go into hypnosis and they see their soul in this other body, where is that?
Great question. I think you definitely can have, so there's me, Heather. Could there be more parts of my soul that are on this earth right now? Absolutely. In completely different bodies, different locations around the world. Again, there's no limit to what our soul can choose to do. Are there other parts of my soul that are living as Heather on different timelines, having a similar experience? Maybe there's one, like I'm divorced, but maybe there's one that's still married and still living
Right.
out that lifetime. And maybe there's one that never even got married and is living out that timeline. And then there's everything in between, because every choice that we make creates a timeline split. If you decide between job A and B, you may go off in job A, but job B still keeps going, because everything is happening in this now moment. So it all already exists. So our soul is just sort of, our consciousness is shifting between the different timeline experiences. It's so expansive. It really does make your mind go, what the heck? How do we put all this together? And we're multidimensional. And that's the thing, too. It's like most people are traveling. Your consciousness can move in and out of your body. Um, you don't have to have full consciousness in this body at all times. So part of you can be called off on a mission, and you're out there doing whatever. And then this part's like really, really tired. So you lay down and take a nap because, there's just a little bit of you. Um, it's, it's so expansive.
Yeah. Well, first I thought you said expensive, and I was like, no, it's
Expansive,
expansive.
expansive. Yeah. It probably does get expensive if you're trying to keep up with all those
Oh,
timelines.
but so asking you for me personally, like, because I'm feeling this, I just finished Reiki 2 like a month ago, and I just did a healing from a woman that did a distance healing, worked on my chakras. It did this whole thing distance. I wasn't even with her, and I just laid here on the couch for an hour while she did it, and then we got on the phone for an hour, and she went through this whole thing. And it was, I don't know, so if, and I know you're like a pusher, or you can see people's like what's going on, and why am I having this place, and why does timelines come to me, and why am I feeling like I'm getting pulled somewhere different.
Yeah.
It's like my energy's different right now, and it's been like
Yeah.
that probably since I started, maybe like a month ago, where I was kind of like, I want to open this healing center. That's part of my, like, in my vision.
Yep.
And the podcast is important. I work with children at these local schools. That's important. But it's like there's a magnet somewhere. And it's like, it's almost like it's pulling me. Like I
Mhm.
feel like there's something new, I guess, so I want to hear your magic.
I think that's your soul. I feel like a lot of people are going through that right now. Like I said, I'm going through that. A lot of people are leveling up, moving to the next part of your path. Things are just unfolding. You'll start to feel called or drawn to certain things that maybe weren't there before, but now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I think I'm really interested in that. And I think that's just like we talked about the shifting timelines, but you're leveling up to the next part of your journey, the next part of your mission. It's your soul calling you. It's your guide saying, come on, we're going this way. And then the human is like, but wait a minute, I'm comfortable here. Everything's fine. And they're like, nope, nope, nope. You have more planned for yourself. So you just have to trust that. That's one thing that I teach people is trusting your inner guidance, because it will always lead you in the right direction. It may feel a bit scary sometimes, but it really, the more that you trust your inner guidance, the more will unfold. And I think that's been the biggest thing for me. I have an amazing team. I'm very connected with them, and they sometimes lead me in crazy directions that I'm like, are you sure this is what you want me to do? But it ends up working out so beautifully, and it allows me to do things that I never dreamed would even be possible. So
And the key there is say yes.
say yes. Yeah.
That's always like with raising my girls, it's like if something comes to your mind and you're wondering, that seems weird. Well, say yes to it. Like, you never know. Like, it could lead you to something that what else you never dreamed of, or it's going to give you an answer of the other. Like, maybe it's not for you, but it gave you that, like, oh, okay, there's always a breadcrumb that's going to take you to the next step.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think sometimes we can get too heavy in our mind, especially in this world, and when you're being drawn into new things, because that's my thing sometimes is I'm kind of like we did. So Sarah and I did starship healing sessions for a while, where we would guide people onto a galactic starship, and they would go in different healing spaces and experience different rooms on the starship and connect in with crystal healing beds and beautiful expansive nature spaces where they would go into like the crystalline waters of Sirius, and they could feel it, they were experiencing it. But when my guides first started dropping in that we want you to take people onto a starship to heal them, I was like, you've lost your mind. I'm hearing this, and they would actually come through clients in sessions at the end. It was like they would break in and go, hey, Heather, you can use the starships for healing. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's not possible. And I think I tried to brush it off for the longest time, because I'm like, I have no idea how to do that, until this couple in Australia popped up and they were teaching it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
Huh.
crazy. Like the synchronicities. And they were like, well, if you're not going to explore it, because I'm typically one that will try it and try to figure it out, but I wasn't touching this one. And so they brought it to me and they said, go take this course, and then that'll give you some confidence. And so
And
that's when I got that. And then Sarah and I gave it a try, and it was magical.
yeah, I was listening to some of those, and knowing Sarah, prior. So then it kind of helped me connect to that because I was listening to her. You guide her through the vision, the starship. And I was like, what the heck? I mean, that just is a whole different level.
Crazy. It's crazy, but I think the one thing that I've learned on my journey is, and this is what I would love for people to know. I'm so open minded, so I'm one that will try anything and test it out, and hey, let's practice and just see what we can do. Be so open minded on this journey because there's just pure magic to be discovered. So many things that we haven't figured out that we can do that seems crazy. Um, but we can do more than we believe. So
Right. Oh, I am so that we have dumbed down our power, the healing, that why I'm so focused on healing and, just taking the Reiki just out of curiosity. And understanding, like going to these, FFS, those frequency rooms and the sound healing and the breath work and all the things. I mean, it goes on and on. There's so many, but
yeah.
it has ignited something in me to where I've been creating this space in a timeline, and I know it
Mm,
exists. So I'm getting my frequency aligned to that timeline. And when I look at timelines, I had a past life regression. It was a piano. So every key was a timeline.
yeah,
So I would
perfect.
move to one key and go, I would look and I could see that timeline. And then I would move over here and I could see that. But I could tell I could take something from that timeline and make this timeline shift. It was
Right.
just an interesting, that whole past life thing was so that I've had many, but that was um, one that kind of made me realize like, wow, when you look at, made me understand timelines. But the healing, explain what you've learned and where your perspective is, and we'll end that. But I want you to explain where they can find you. But let's kind of end on the healing since that's kind of, I've heard you speak of that too.
Yeah, healing in what way?
Frequency, the new, where we're the new earth, how we're going to be healing. And, people are going to
Oh,
believe that they have so much power in their mind. And
yeah, I think healing will change tremendously. I think new advanced technologies are going to become available. We're going to understand more about how our so so many people think when they're having a physical issue or ailment that it's physical, and so they treat the physical and they go to a doctor and they say I'm having this problem. The doctor says, well, I can't figure out what it is, so they try to treat the physical. But really, when you become a hypnosis practitioner, you learn that everything is tied to something energetic. It's emotional. It's something that you haven't cleared or released or let go of. So I feel like that's going to be a huge shift because our frequencies, as they rise, will no longer be able to support those lower, dense, heavy emotional
right,
frequencies or things that we hold on to. I think that's going to shift everybody just feeling more balanced and aligned within themselves. But I do feel like healers are going to become more prominent eventually than even doctors because we have to learn how to heal our bodies in a more natural way. What we have now, it's wonderful, but it's not always the best ways for these organic divine bodies. There are other ways of healing. So I feel like that's going to really progress in the future and just be so much easier. And we're going to be so much healthier. And that is amazing. We don't have to work so hard like we're
yeah,
doing right now to try to clear and release
right.
and get that
Yeah, I
balance.
really see that so much. I really
Yeah,
do. It's like there's definitely a pull for that because I've always known that, I'm never sick. And I know it's based on my vibration and frequency and
absolutely.
my thoughts and, I just don't. And I know it's like being a mom and, having children, they get sick and everything, but I've raised them to the place where it's like, okay, well, your vibration, you were probably in this lower state, kind of like the entities, right? Like when you lower your vibration, it's like this attack to your system. It's more vulnerable to
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, I loved this hour with you. Tell everybody how to find you. Did we miss anything? I was like, there's so many things that you are the a magic. person. I just have enjoyed it so much,
Thank you
more
so
than I thought. Like, I don't mean more than I thought, but once I started learning about you and I'm like, oh, Sarah blew my mind. And then I was like, oh, Heather, no wonder they're a team. They're a duo.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
what an amazing connection that you both have and what you can do as a team together. And what a,
yeah.
and I look at it like, you found each other and it's definitely a soul contract or connection for sure.
Yeah,
You can
we do.
feel it.
We have a big soul contract in this life for sure. Yeah, so you can find me at quantumhealingwithin.com is my website. I have a wonderful membership community where we do all sorts of things from blueprint recoding. We do guided journeys. Sarah does channeled sessions in there. And then there's just a huge library of all sorts of healing meditations, guided journeys for people to work with. That's quantumsoulportal.com. And then Sarah and I are working on soulmindacademy.com, which is where we do our courses and our light code bundles and all the fun things we store there. So either one of those
Yeah,
places.
no, it's so fun to, I've been doing that all. So I'm on the, like that high. I've been learning so much from you and it could keep going. Like I'm sure I missed so many things, but it's like my head was so full of your knowledge and what you've learned and, where you are in this part of your journey. It's just beautiful. It was so fun to go down that path with you. So thank you.
Oh, I've enjoyed it too. Thank you so much. This has been so lovely.
Thank you. And you're my new soul sister, so I know we'll be connected.